Hello, I'm Geetha Gurumurthy. Our top story on Impact today. Another 24 hours underground for the missing Thai schoolboys. But hopes remain they will be found alive. Rescuers bring in pumps to clear the water that's trapped them in a cave system. Our correspondent is at the scene.
The assumption is that they got cut off by rising floodwaters and that they're still alive. The trouble is, this is a complex that goes back for 10 kilometres.
Myanmar's army sacks the general who oversaw the military action which led to the refugee crisis for weakness against Rohingya Muslim militants. When fake news can be fatal, the internet rumours which have led to innocent people being killed in India. Also ahead, the latest from the World Cup. Who will be in the last 16? We'll bring you the latest from Moscow. Hello. 12 teenage boys and their football coach have been missing since Saturday in Thailand, and still the search hasn't yielded any news. They were in a cave complex in Chiang Rai province when a section near the main entrance flooded. Well, rescue teams are still trying to find the boys, as Jonathan Head now reports.
Well, they brought hundreds more people in to join this operation. These guys have come from the army, and you can see behind me there's probably 50 or 60 people here. Now, what their exact role will be isn't clear. You can see everything here has been churned into an appalling sea of mud by the numbers of people. The Navy divers who've been trying to get through for the last 2 days have had no success at all up to now. And it's only now we're starting to see people with real caving experience going into the cave entrance, which is just around those bushes there. So here's another lot who are going in. So they're really quite narrow area at the cave entrance. We're not sure whether they've got any good news or whether they're going to help with a rescue. We've seen this coming and going of all sorts of units, people from the Border Patrol Police, people from the Marine Police going in and out all day long. But so far they've had nothing good to show for all their efforts. Well, this is where you come into the cave complex. As you can see, these are the bikes that the boys left when they went in on Saturday afternoon. They've been down there now for 3 days. Obviously, there's real concern about their state of health. Although it's reasonably warm, possibly not too cool inside, the assumption is that they got cut off by rising floodwaters and that they're still alive. The trouble is, this is a complex that goes back for 10 kilometres. The Navy divers simply couldn't get through the narrow passages, and they're hoping that some of the volunteers who've got more caving experience may have more success. We've seen a lot of oxygen tanks being brought up here. They've also got pumps over on the other side there, which we expect them to start using. It's not clear where they're going to pump the water from, but clearly they're trying to get those water levels down, although with this constant rain, it's not clear what success they'll have. But this is very, very worrying for the relatives who've been coming up here and praying at makeshift shrines they've put up in the forest for a good result, for some kind of good news. They still haven't had it, and they've still got no idea what state those boys are in or which part of the caves they may be located.
Jonathan Head, really unimaginably difficult for those families. Well, one official said that the emergency workers are doing all they can, of course, to try and rescue the children.
If we find them, we will pull them out one by one. Now we've found 2 holes from the top, which means that they're getting some air.
Meanwhile, relatives of the boys said they were grateful for the work being done by the rescuers.
I have been waiting for him to come out since Saturday. I would like to thank all officers who are here to help and also support these 13 boys.
Well, as soon as we hear anything, we will bring you an update, of course, and there is more online on that search in Thailand. Meanwhile, to Myanmar, because the army there says it has sacked the general who led the campaign which forced 700,000 Rohingya people to flee Myanmar last year. The army revealed in a Facebook post that Major General Maung Maung So had lost his job for showing weakness in the face of the Rohingya Muslim militant attacks on the police force. Well, the announcement came hours after the European Union placed the Major General and 6 other senior security figures on a sanctions list because of the Rohingya persecution, something the UN has described as ethnic cleansing. Our Myanmar correspondent Nick Beek is in Yangon and has more on the story.
As is often the case here in Myanmar, all is not what it seems at first. Yes, we've had the EU saying that it's placing 7 top generals on a sanctions list, and hours later the military here saying that yes, the man who was in charge of the operations in Rakhine State, where all those Rohingya people were forced to flee, he's been kicked out of the military. But according to this Facebook post explaining the decision, as you say, the reason that he's left the army is because he showed weakness apparently. He was not strong enough when it came to dealing with Rohingya militants who attacked the police last August, and that of course sparked this dreadful cycle of violence and saw the rape and the murder of many, many Rohingya people. Certainly that is the accusation levelled at the Burmese military.
Can you just give us an idea of what these EU sanctions are, what effect they'll have?
Well, I think their chief value is symbolic because it really concentrates on a ban on flying if they were to come to the EU, if of course, you know, they've got any desire to do. Also, their assets are frozen if they have any assets in the European Union. But I was talking to one European diplomat last night and he was saying that this is a list which can be added to. It sends a message that some parts of community are working together, and of course at the same time there are moves afoot to try and get the ICC, the International Criminal Court, involved. The difficulty with that is Myanmar has so far had no role in this, says it doesn't accept the jurisdiction of that court and is not willing to help at all with any information or people coming into Myanmar to gather evidence.
Nick Beek for us there in Myanmar. Well, So Win Tan from the BBC Burmese service says the sackings and the EU sanctions have polarised public opinion in Burma.
All the time the Rohingyas have been portrayed as the foreigners, you know, came to settle in Myanmar. So the public opinion, majority of the public opinion look on Rohingyas unkindly. For example, this even latest
because they see them as coming from Bangladesh.
Yeah, coming from Bangladesh, and they are the foreigners who are settling in their country. So they support, military also utilized, exploit this sentiment, and they said that we are legitimately defending our land against these terrorist elements. So even this latest sacking of this General Mamonso, the commander, Western commander, there are loads of, you know, Facebook comments that, you know, don't worry about these sanctions, then we support you, you know, then even they are blaming the military that, you know, you are kind of turning against one of your own people. He is defending the country. Why do you have to take action against him?
So Win To there from the BBC Burmese service. So Win Tan, sorry. Let me bring you some more news now. And America's head of border security says the agency won't hand over parents who illegally enter the country to the authorities until the government can find a way of prosecuting them without separating them from their children. Last week, President Trump suspended the controversial practice of separating parents from children after a global outcry. The Maltese government says it wants to prevent a humanitarian crisis over the German rescue ship, the Lifeline, but insists on a sharing of responsibility among EU states. More than 230 migrants who were rescued last week remain stranded off the coast of Malta after being refused permission to dock. Conditions on board are reported to be deteriorating. The upper house of the Dutch Parliament has approved a partial ban on burqas and other full-face coverings. The ban only applies to public buildings like schools and hospitals. The draft law has been criticised by the Council of State, which advises the government over legal issues. Now, in India, false rumours about child kidnapping gangs circulating on social media have led to a spate of brutal murders. 8 people have been killed by lynch mobs in the past 2 months. Dan Johnson reports from Bangalore, the heart of India's Silicon Valley, where police are appealing to the public and the media to stop the spread of fake news. A warning, there are some graphic images in the report.
Here, the drip feed of fake news stirred a frenzy of rumour, and an innocent life was lost. Kalu Ram was 25, an outsider who came to these streets in search of work. He found people gripped by suspicion and fear. Tie him up, they shout. Hit him.
People mistook him for a child kidnapper based on this fake rumors in WhatsApp and Facebook. They started thrashing him. They dragged him on the road.
There are women in the crowd, and look who's pulling him. They're just children. Then, Kalu's beaten with cricket bats and sticks. Left in the road, he died on the way to hospital.
This is not some remote village, this is Bangalore, India's third city. It's modern and diverse, the heart of the IT industry. And yet here, under this flyover, Kalu became a victim of India's fake news firestorm.
This is the footage that worried so many. Apparently, evidence of the kidnapping threat. And look, we found the same viral video, just yards from where Kalu was killed.
Do you believe that video is real?
Yeah, I believe in this video.
But this isn't a real abduction. It isn't even in India. The unedited version shows it's actually a child safety film from Pakistan.
Everyone thinks this is real, but after the police informed us, we now know that this is fake.
But WhatsApp messages talked of 200 kidnappers coming to Bangalore. And when news channels reported the rumours, 5,000 were said to be hunting for children. The headlines warned parents to beware.
After watching these videos and the news, we are concerned about the safety of our children.
We do believe the police, but when we see the videos, it makes us unsure. I wonder what's true and what's not.
And it is cheap smartphones that spread such uncertainty so quickly. So the police must ply the streets to uphold the truth. The antidote to poisonous rumours, reassurance for an anxious community. And online too, officers are detecting the lies, trying to dispel the myths.
I only request the media to confirm it before spreading such type of news which are not authenticated.
Across India, 8 lives have been lost in this latest wave of fallacy defeating fact. Fake news is a challenge we all grapple with, but here it is proving deadly. Dan Johnson, BBC News, Bangalore.
Now, the first case of polio for 22 years has been confirmed in Papua New Guinea. The World Health Organization said it was detected in a 6-year-old boy in April. The disease has long been in retreat, cut by 99% since the campaign to eradicate it began in 1988. But new cases have appeared in several countries in the last year. Well, Oliver Rosenbauer at the World Health Organization says that wherever there are gaps in polio vaccination coverage, there is a risk the disease will re-emerge.
Well, this is really the danger with this disease, polio, and let's remind ourselves what it actually is, because most of us don't see it anymore. It's caused by a virus. It's a crippling disease. Children are those which are most affected, and it paralyzes for life. And the nature of the disease is that it's highly infectious, and it can reemerge in polio-free areas. And that's why the best protection that you can have is to maintain high vaccination coverage, high population immunity levels. And any time where you have gaps in such coverage, you run the risk that diseases such as polio will reemerge. And that is what we're seeing in Papua New Guinea at the moment.
But if Papua New Guinea was declared free in 2000, how can one new case have sprung up?
So again, this is the nature of the virus. We live in an interconnected world. Most people who might be infected with the virus are not going to display any symptoms whatsoever. So it is very easy for it to reemerge. And that is why minimizing the risk of its reemergence, the only way to do that is through maintaining high levels of vaccination coverage. Now, the government of Papua New Guinea is doing all the right things at the moment. They are strengthening disease surveillance to see are there any additional children who might be affected by the disease. And more importantly, they're launching a massive outbreak response in the country. They've declared this outbreak to be a national public health emergency, and they're going to, in the immediately infected province and in surrounding neighboring provinces, aim to vaccinate 300,000 children under the age of 5 years to first prevent more children from being paralyzed, and second, to stop the circulation of this virus again.
Oliver Rosenbauer there at the World Health Organization. Do stay with us here on BBC World News. Much more ahead.
This video, as you can hear, is sleepy and whispered.
Now, is that a sound which makes your brain tingle? We'll reveal why some very ordinary noises can have a rather extraordinary effect on our minds.